Why there are some ugly characters in this?
Font.
Yeah, the font, because
slightly
it was the author used some rare font that he likes, and I don't have this font.
Oh.
Gold, yeah.
Eagerness to worship? What is this?
Bhajaneshu spriha. Spriha is eagerness.
No.
Bhajaneshu for bhajan. Bhajan. So bhajan is worship, devotional service, or meditative devotional service. It has several. Actually, this is a very interesting word in Sanskrit, bhaj. Bhaj. It's in Mahabharata. It's usually used in the sense of love, like I love you. In that sense. That's how it's used very often in the Mahabharata. And so it's a very big word. So it has many meanings. And it's you can remember 4:11. Krishna says, "Ye tamam prapadyante tam tathaiva bhajamyaham." So even Krishna does bhajan of you. The same way as you worship, well, the same bhajan you do to Krishna, Krishna does to you. It's translated slightly differently, but in Bhakti Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami quotes Skanda Purana that if you look at Krishna, Krishna looks at you. If you think of Krishna, Krishna thinks of you, and if you worship Krishna, Krishna worships you. So we don't like this, Krishna worshipping us, but the word used is bhaj. And in Mahabharata, you can see that sometimes some apsara comes and says, as I bhaj you, so you bhaj me. So that means as I love you, you love me, right? So it's not like really just worship. It has more, so it's with emotion and whatever relationship is there. So Krishna, in other words, however you love Krishna, Krishna loves you actually even more, slightly more, or not slightly. You make one step to Krishna, he makes 10 steps to you. So he reciprocates very happily. As we read that Krishna is more anxious to return us than we can ever be to go to the spiritual world. He's more anxious than we can ever desire. Okay, so we read 1 to 21. Yesterday we read Prabhupada is saying that only with the happy mind you can understand the science of God, which is an interesting statement. On one side it's nice that to understand the science of God you have to be happy in devotional service. On the other side, if somebody is in this stage of struggling here, then it sounds a little depressing. They are already depressed, and then they hear, like Prabhupada in Australia, one devotee is asking Srila Prabhupada, isn't this that devotees suffer more because they understand that this world is full of suffering, matter is separation from Krishna? And Prabhupada says, what? No. If devotee is happy, if he suffers, he's not a devotee. Like you hear this, you think, my God, I'm not a devotee, I'm suffering, I'm not a devotee. But this is based on that, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma, if you, Mad Bhaktim Labate Param. So if you actually are Bhakta, really, then you're supposed to be already Brahma Bhuta, and Brahma Bhuta means happy. But that, from here, you can see that comes after Nishta. So if it's Anishtita, we are still struggling with Anarthas, obviously there will be some suffering. Afterwards, also, like here, for example, when Krishna is hiding, it also looks like suffering, but that's no longer actually suffering. This is why these we study only after the 9 cantos, because if we don't understand transcendental reality, we will misunderstand. We will think, oh, what is this? Gopis are suffering. I thought they should enjoy with Krishna, but this is not really suffering. This is Vyabhichari Bhava. So there are 5 elements of rasa, enjoyment, and this is sanchari. This is transitory spice. Like some people like pepper in sabji. So if you eat separately, it's burning. But in sabji, it's nice. or the whole world likes chocolate. So it's bitter. You know, it's sweet plus bitter. So in like separately, bitter, you wouldn't like it. But if the spiritual world is unlimited sweetness, so therefore this little spice, bitterness or pungent, it creates very pleasurable variety. Or like cake, if you eat a cake, there has to be some sour jam or sour something, right? Then it becomes nice. If it's only sweet, you know, like, okay, if you are hungry, okay. But if you're eating normally, if you're not starving, and if it's only sweet and creamy, you know, it's like too much. But it's sweet and then sour, sweet and something bitter. Then, oh, it's very nice. So that's these sanchari bhavas, the suffering and everything. It's to deepen, to create very pleasurable variety, so they can increase their ecstasy unlimitedly. In Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Sananda Goswami says that Tatratyam yad chayad dukham sa sarva sukha murdasu sanari narti sa shoka kritsnananda bharopari. Dukkha, this is Brihad Bhagavatamrita 3.6, verse 367, that whatever dukkha, whatever misery you see, tatratyam, there in Vrindavan, that dukkha, that suffering, dances on the head of all happiness. Sarva sukha murdasu narinati. And if you see there some shoka, some lamentation or some distress, it's dancing on the mountain of all ananda taken together. All ananda you take together. So misery is dancing on the top. So what happiness does there, you cannot even imagine. So in other words, it's not really misery, it's a variety of ecstasy. It's a special flavor, it's a spice. It's a sanchari bhava. There are 33 sanchari bhavas explained in the Rasa Shastra, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which spice up part of the recipe of rasa, 5 elements of rasa. So this suffering here, it's not really suffering, it's just to increase pleasure in the spiritual world. But even here, I think I mentioned that even when one struggles with the mind and with the anarthas, even that misery and confusion, after you pass to the other side, you remember very happily, because in that you see this as tapasya. You see this, that it was a test, and I had been choosing Krishna. So therefore, afterwards you see, oh, there was a very sweet part to that suffering, very valuable. You will not exchange this hellish period for heavenly pleasures, because you have chosen spirit in that period, right? So that's becomes very valuable. And you see, there was sweetness in that period also, all the time. I was too distracted by my misery to notice, but now I see, yes, there was Krishna there. I was choosing Krishna. All right, so let's read 1 to 29. Very happy verse. Bhidyate hridaya grantis, bhidyate hridaya grantis, bhidyate hridaya grantis,
Vidyate hridaya grantis,
chidyante sarva samshaya,
chidyante sarva samshaya,
chidyante sarva samshaya,
chidyante sarva samshaya,
kshiyante chasya karmani,
kshiyante chasya karmani,
kshiyante chasya karmani,
kshiyante chasya karmani,
drishta evatmanishvare,
drishta evatmanishvare,
drishta evatmanishvare.
drishta evatmanishvare.
Let's read word for word. Vidyate,
Vidyate,
pierced.
pierced,
Hridaya,
hridaya,
heart.
heart,
Granthi,
granthi,
knots.
knots,
Chidyante,
chidyante,
cut to pieces.
cut to pieces,
Sarva,
sarva,
all.
of
Sanshaya, misgivings.
misgivings.
Prabhupada is using such rare words, misgivings. Basically means like doubts, fears, and indecision. Something like this, yeah, misgivings. It's amazing, he's using such interesting words. Kshiyante, terminated. Cha, end. Asya, his. Karmani, chain of fruitive actions. Drishte, having seen. Eva, certainly. Atmani, unto the self. Ishvare, dominating factor. Another amazing translation. Ishvara, we all know Ishvara means God, right? But he says no, dominating factor. So yes. Okay, translation. Thus the knot in the heart is pierced, and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruitive actions is terminated when one sees one's self and one's master. In fact, as I mentioned, it's a famous verse. This line, Drishta or Drishtva Evatmanishvare, is there in the 11th canto, and it's there also in the Upanishads. Somebody is very shy. Sure. Yeah, Mundaka Upanishad. You see, Mundaka Upanishad 229 says, Bhidyate hridaya grante, shidate sarva samshaya, kshiyante chasya karmani. Exactly the same. The last line is slightly different. Tasmin drishte paravare. When you see the Lord in spirit and in the lower and higher energies, so here and there, up, above and below, or the BBT translators translate this as within all superior and inferior beings. So that's the Mundaka Upanishad verse. And I think also we have it somewhere in Canto 11. Let me see. 11, 20, 30. So there you can see Krishna says, Maya drishte kilatmani. So first three the same, and the last one is Maya drishte kilatmani. When you see me, who is the Akhila Atma, the soul of everything, of everybody, Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yeah. So it's sort of a famous echo of very famous verses. So I will read the translation, the purport here. Attaining scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead means seeing one's own self simultaneously. So you can see how does Srila Prabhupada translate when he says Drishta Eva Atmani Ishvare. He puts two, again, he uses very Upanishadic translation. He translates Atmani Ishvara as both you see the Lord and you see the soul as a superior, as the superior decision-making agent, non-material. So you see soul as Ishvara, not the Parameshvara, not the Supreme Lord, but Ishvara as with regards to matter, that the soul also has a choice. The soul is Ishvara with regards to material bodies and material world, and Upanishads like to sort of conflate, put two together, because Upanishads are meant for Brahmanas, and the Brahmanas, they have heard it a million times, so therefore they have to have some puzzle a little bit. So things have to be spoken in a little mystical way, so it's interesting for them. So therefore it will be sort of, some riddles will be there, paradoxes, and so it has to be spoken in such a little mysterious and difficult way. And then they will, actually it says one, but it's two, or it's two, but it's one, and so they will, it will be intellectually stimulating for them. So that's Upanishadic style. Bhaktivinoda Thakur remarks in his commentaries in Ishopanishad. And you can see Srila Prabhupada follows this style. He doesn't give a simple translation. He gives a very also very subtle, very fine, we can say highly intellectual translation. He says dominating factor, which includes both the superior energy as spirit, jiva soul, and the Lord, who is above both energies, matter and spirit. So it's actually, you can see it's quite refined intellectually. It's quite refined how Srila Prabhupada. So again, you can see the first canto. You can see Srila Prabhupada is writing. It seems a very simple language, but you can see he's aiming it at elite. That was his plan B, Indian elite. He was going to the Brahminical families and saying, please give me one son. I will train him and he will help me. And nobody gave him a son, one son. Now, even I come to some temple in Vrindavan and the Pujari will say, hey, I have 3 sons, take him as a disciple. And I don't know what to do with him, he's a 14-year-old boy, what will I do with this boy? So now it's all different. But when Prabhupada was asking, they said, no, Swamiji. So he had to come to America, train Americans and then come back, and then it started. It's special strategy. Okay, so scientific, also interesting, scientific knowledge. Scientific knowledge in Srila Prabhupada's translation, this is Vijnana, how he translates. We sometimes because the previous verse said Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam. So that's Srila Prabhupada's translation of Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam, scientific knowledge of the Supreme. Oftentimes we translate Vijnana as realized knowledge, yes. But also it's a classic, another classic translation is scientific knowledge. So specialized, so to say, scientific knowledge. So Prabhupada uses this translation here, saying this is a science about God. As far as the identity of the living being as spirit self is concerned, there are a number of speculations and misgivings. The materialist does not believe in the existence of the spirit self, and empiric philosophers, so that's his code name for Gyanis, believe in the impersonal feature of the whole spirit without individuality of the living beings. But the transcendentalists affirm that the soul and the supersoul are 2 different identities, qualitatively one, but quantitatively different. So quality is same, we are one, but quantitatively, no, these are, there's a difference, distinction. There are many other theories, but all these different speculations are at once cleared off as soon as Sri Krishna is realized in truth by the process of bhakti yoga. That's also my experience. I was a Buddhist, and then my friend Toto Gopinath gave me the Bhagavad Gita as it is. I already was singing Hare Krishna, but I thought, everything is one of many paths, right? And then I was reading Bhagavad Gita as it is, and Srila Prabhupada has defeated me philosophically. I didn't want to accept, but I had to accept that, yes, this is a perfect philosophy. It includes everything I had ever read and learned before, plus it adds a higher order structure and hierarchy and explanation, systematic explanation of Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. So I had to use my mathematical education and so forth, and it helped me to accept that, okay, maybe the absolute is a person. It's not unreasonable. It's possible that he's a person. But it was somewhat theoretical. And then devotees appeared in my city, native city, West Ukraine. And then I asked them, can I join? And they said, yeah, sure, come this time. So I came. They gave me japa. I chanted I chanted some, but not regularly. So I chanted my first 8 rounds, and then the next day they sent me to distribute books. So I didn't know much what to tell people. I was just telling them, life is, life is suffering. The source of suffering is material desires. 8 Four Noble Truths of Buddhism. But it worked.
Eightfold path.
Yes. But I was doing this for Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened? Within a few days, I got a realization. First of all, I felt something similar to what was happening when I was living in the forest. Some similar processes were happening in my heart, which confirmed that yes, even though I'm in the city and handling, words of money, it's the same process, the same purification is happening in the heart. But also, what is more important is just within a few days, I felt a connection that Krishna responds, Krishna accepts your service. He's there, and he's actually happy to accept your service. So that's unique. No other yoga offers you connection within a few days, right? No, in every other yoga you have to spend decades to arise about the body, about the mind, pacify the mind, separate yourself from the mind, then see that consciousness is also just a mirror, then you are somewhere separate, and then there is it's a very complicated process.
Is it not because you got this realization because you might have accumulated some, your, let's say, your progress in the past life, and now you started from where you were?
I would like to think so.
No, I mean, we see that very often. Sometimes very new bhakta comes, and it happens. I see that in Zurich temple, I never heard, and in 6 months he's like far ahead, and then you wonder why is it so, and then there are sometimes people, and there's...
Usually it is like this, but you may also feel that you come to Krishna consciousness, and for some time it's so natural. It's like remembering. It's like this is what you always were looking for, and it's like becoming uncovered, and it's like flying, and it's ecstatic, and you go, then boom, you hit the wall. So I guess this is like as Krishna says in the 6th chapter of the Gita. Then if you deviate it in the next life, you quickly remember.
Yeah.
Right? So that's sort of you are recovering, you are restoring your previous realizations, and then boom, you hit this life's work. So from here, you need to work. And you think, what is this? It was so happy, and now it ended. What's the matter? But that's this life's work. So
and this realization, the pastness of it is depending on. Some people never realize also in Krishna consciousness.
I would say that bhakti. I believe that bhakti is extremely powerful, and it's because you see, my path was through jnana, obviously. And in the beginning, I thought that everybody has to go like this. But then in Krishna consciousness, I have seen not necessarily. There are some who were jnanis or yogis, but they're just people who take bhakti directly, and they also fly. They also fly. They very quickly they are sincere. Prabhupada says simple for the simple. They just want to please Krishna, and they also get amazing realizations. And sometimes I have seen that they are very anti-philosophical, so to say, but then they serve, and then within 10 or 20 years they become brilliant philosophers. Brilliant philosophers. So even though they began completely without any philosophical inclination or even capacity, and they couldn't, when somebody forced them to give a class, it was a 20-second class, they would just look at the page and suffer, and they would just say, anyway, serve Krishna. Just serve Krishna. I've seen it. And then after a few years, I see, my God, he's giving an amazing, brilliant class. So in other words, they've obviously started without a philosophical background, but then Krishna just supplies. Krishna supplies everything. So in other words, bhakti is powerful. This is what Srila Prabhupada says, that you are all continuing from before. That's what Prabhupada said, you are all continuing from before. But then he says, also in the Nectar of Devotion, he says it, and Rupa Goswami says it. And then he says, even if you did not did practice bhakti before, no problem. You can advance very quickly by the mercy of devotees and Krishna. So we also can see it happening. Bhakti is very special. And Prabhupada always translates. Yesterday again I was hearing, where did I hear Srila Prabhupada? So he was saying, probably it was in the kitchen they were playing. Prabhupada is emphasizing, Mamcha yoga vicharana bhakti yogana sevate sagunan samatityaitan. So 1426. So there Krishna says if you engage in pure bhakti, you cross above the three modes. But Prabhupada always adds immediately. That he immediately rises above the three modes. It's not really there in Sanskrit. You could sort of understand that you could put it there because Krishna just says samati completely crosses over. Samatitya.
Yeah.
Right? But Prabhupada always says immediately.
But then the question is, if immediately, then why does these people have to come back? Like you see many people after certain years.
I thought about, yesterday finally I got some thought about this.
Okay.
It was that you rise, but if you are at the stage of Anishtita Bhakti, let me put it on the screen so we have the, where is it? Madhurya Kadambini. I don't know. See, it must be here. Yes. If you are still at the stage of Anishtita Bhakti, then you rise for a short time. You know, you can, we call it like a preliminary advance installment of mercy. But technically it's just Anartha Nivriti and Anishtita Bhajana Kriya, unsteady Bhajana Kriya. So therefore you rise, and almost every devotee has some moments that they experience.
They are above three modes.
Yes, yes. But because it's Anishtita, because Anarthas are still there, he sort of returns to down, back. And therefore, as Krishna says, that if somebody can deviate, either after a short period, and then he goes and enjoys and comes back.
And what was the reason they come back, or what could be that even if some people keep on practicing the same, services in temple and everything, what do you think is bringing them even?
Anarthas.
The previous anarthas.
Yes, yeah. So they have not crossed beyond anarthas. We read that even from bhava one can go down, but it's rare. But the main thing is, so if he comes down after Nishta, then he takes birth in a very, very special circumstances. Like Srila Prabhupada says, I was born in a devotee family, in a family of great transcendentalists, as Krishna says in the 6th chapter. So therefore, already you are a big yogi from childhood. You know, it's
His father was very good.
yeah, but this is rare. This is or Bhaktisiddhantaji. Yes. Although I'm not saying that they deviated, but this Prabhupada gives always himself and Bhaktisiddhantaji as the example of such fortune to be born in a family of transcendentalists. Otherwise, Krishna says if you deviate after a short time, then you go enjoy what you wanted, because that's usually the reason, right? And then you take birth in a pious Shimatam Shuchinam Gehe. Shuchinam means it's religious and wealthy family, where you don't have to worry about eating and material things, and also you are exposed to it's a pious family, so therefore you will be sort of exposed to scriptures, yes. And you can see that Srila Prabhupada always warns that you Indians, you have been born in good place, but look, don't waste your chance, because you can waste your chance, right? So, so please use it for for learning the Bhagavad Gita, practicing and going further. Of course, if it was actually bhakti, basically what will happen, you will get this another chance again and again and again and again. Right? Krishna is very merciful, so it's not lost. Neha vikrama nashasti, it doesn't get lost. It's a eternal credit. 240 Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so yes, realization. Realization is coming, doubts are cleared by practice. You know, it's no longer theoretical. And even at the very early days, you can get a glimpse. You can get some experience of it. Shri Krishna is like the sun, and the materialistic speculations about the absolute truth are like the darkest midnight. As soon as the Krishna sun is arisen within one's heart, the darkness of materialistic speculations about the absolute truth and the living beings is at once cleared off. Because you have a direct experience. You don't have to guess. It's obvious. In the presence of the sun, the darkness cannot stand, and the relative truths that were hidden within the dense darkness of ignorance become clearly manifested by the mercy of Krishna, who is residing in everyone's heart as the Super Soul. In the Bhagavad Gita 10:11, very beautiful verse, the Lord, it's one of the Chatushloki verses, 4 verses expressing the essence of the Gita. So that's 10:8, 9, 10, and 11. Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. The Lord says that in order to show special favor to His pure devotees, He personally eradicates the dense darkness of all misgivings by switching on the light of pure knowledge within the heart of a devotee. So you can see it's a personal reciprocation, personal relationship. Therefore, because of the personality of Godhead's taking charge of illuminating the heart of his devotee, certainly a devotee engaged in his service in transcendental love cannot remain in darkness. He comes to know everything of the absolute and the relative truths. And devotees, you may sometimes have this experience, especially if you are engaged in preaching or teaching. Sometimes you don't know something and you just humbly want to serve. Somebody is asking a question, and my experience, it is sometimes immediately Krishna just gives you some hint from inside, and sometimes it helps if I say I don't know. As soon as I say I don't know, then Krishna helps. I think it's interesting that it's very helpful if I say I don't know first, because it's real. I say the truth, I don't pretend, and then Krishna says, aha, so he wants to be real. Okay, so then let me give him some reality. So
honesty,
give him so he wants truth. Okay, so let me give him some more truth. Doesn't mean that I am elevated or that you are already beyond matter or something, but because you are engaged in the service, so Krishna helps. I think all of you have this experience, right? That when you have to speak about Krishna and in service, then sometimes it turns out that you know something that you don't know. Suddenly, he's giving you answers. He's supplying the answers. So even on some very even neophyte platform, you can experience this. You can imagine what happens at a higher level, and that's also something that you can experience with elevated devotees, senior devotees, that sort of they know your mind, they answer your questions before you ask them, right? They sort of read your mind, and it's incredible.
Like what was experience is, we hear a lecture,
Yes.
we don't know what all points we heard, and suddenly someone discusses something somewhere, and one of the points from the lecture comes.
Yeah, it's all very, how to say, it's very exciting, very fascinating. This.
We don't even remember that we heard this point, but suddenly it comes in the mind.
Susukam kartamavyam. This path of self-realization is joyfully performed. It's quite amazing how Krishna.
It is not like this, like some physical things also happen. Like sometimes, one time what happened, I was cooking in the kitchen, and like I have to do so many things. I have to set up and this, and in the mind, like I was completely focused, and I was doing it. I know I have to now change my clothes and do this. And time is running, and I wanted to do tamarind,
Tamarind.
I wanted to do tamarind, because tamarind takes time. I said Krishna, or I said something, and then backside when Mataji is standing, and she came some time before, and she says, Puneet, do you need tamarind? I don't know from where she bring because she is not having anything know about this that I need tamarind. It's Krishna is put in the heart already,
I yesterday I couldn't resist sharing one video. I will just play. I'm sorry for playing this so much, but I think it sort of illustrates the life of a devotee. Everything is perfectly matching unexpectedly. Sorry for if you're dovetailed, you have some miraculous coincidences, and there are too many of them, to like perfect match of everything. Again, not necessarily, and not, but even as a neophyte devotee, if you can experience something like this, that everything matches, then what to speak about some elevated devotee. Sorry, but I think it's an illustration of a devotee's life. Everything matches unexpectedly. Anyway, sorry. Yes, we didn't finish. So this is not so for a devotee. Everything is a devotee is enlightened. This is not the case for those who speculate on the absolute truth by dint of their own limited power of approach. Perfect knowledge is called parampara, or Prabhupada is applying some special usage of the word deductive knowledge. He said inductive and deductive. So basically it's like, what he means descending, avaroha panta, as opposed to aroha. Panta means by our own strength. Knowledge coming down from the authority to the submissive oral receiver who is bona fide by service and surrender. One cannot challenge the authority of the Supreme and know him also at the same time. He reserves the right of not being exposed to such a challenging spirit of an insignificant spark of the whole, a spark subjected to the control of the illusory energy. The devotees are submissive, and therefore the transcendental knowledge descends from the personality of Godhead to Brahma, and from Brahma to his sons and disciples in succession. This process is helped by the supersoul within such devotees. That is the perfect way of learning transcendental knowledge. There's more, so I think we will read the rest tomorrow in the morning, because we still have 2 days. I'll just go back to the Madhurya Kadambini. So, Ruci and asakti, we mentioned yesterday that after nishta, meaning that a person has already crossed beyond the anarthas, at least to the extent that you do not react to the anarthas. Meaning the anarthas can still be somewhat present, but they do not control you. They do not control your life and your mind. So you know what to do. So the anartha comes and you do not indulge. You say, okay, but let's read the Bhagavatam, let's chant japa, let's go to devotees, let's do kirtan. And this way, therefore, first of all, they have no power over you, and second of all, they quickly lose, they quickly evaporate, because they exist only like the habits. They exist as long as you practice them, right? As long as you do it. Like you may have some people who were your friends in the kindergarten or in a school, and now you don't even remember their names sometimes. You cannot even maybe recognize some of the people. Why? Because you have no interaction. Absolutely no interaction. So in the same way with these anarthas, even though they are deeply in the heart, if you stop feeding them, either by indulging or, which is less clear to a non-practitioner, by not even fighting. So you're not feeding them by even fighting. Because when you fight directly, then you still meditate on the same thing. It's negative rejection is also still the same meditation. Aversion is still very much focused on the same object, hatred. So that's why you can see that Patanjali describes the stages of becoming free as first physical freedom from a bad habit, and then but then you hate in the mind. You actively reject because you want, mind wants it. Mind is attached, so therefore you have to actively reject. So that's why a neophyte will hate the smokers. He will hate the meat eaters actively. And that's why you can see people are afraid of vegans and vegetarians, because oftentimes they are very aggressive. Mm-hmm. But that also means that there is still some struggle in the attachments. Mm-hmm. But then the next stage, the mind becomes releases. You are no longer eager for this, like smoking, and therefore it doesn't disturb you anymore. Okay, they smoke, so what to do? Okay. We have incense and they have tobacco. Anyway, you're sort of, or like I was traveling with I don't know, I'll tell you later. So, like, you are not, you become more neutral into this, but still the concept remains. Yeah. So that means you have it in intelligence and the false ego. Mm-hmm. Then the next one, you become proud. I am not a smoker. I am a vegetarian. I am a yogi. I am, I'm pure. I am clean. You, So that's ahankara. It's there in that. So you use it still to boost yourself. And only when you are completely just compassionate. If you see somebody struggling, you're just compassionate. Not hating, not proud. Sometimes not even realizing. I think Prabhupada, he was very innocent. What was this? He was not even aware that it was something bad. I forgot what it was, which vice in America. He was like not even aware that people are doing something bad. Okay. So it's completely innocent. So that's complete freedom.
And compassion in this sense.
And that if he knows that they are struggling, then he will feel compassion, and he will try to give them something positive to replace the bad habit. So these are.
I have one question. You come from Buddhist background. You see that they start very early on with compassion. It's like
For them, you see, it's compassion for Buddhists is their coping mechanism to overcome moksha kama.
Okay. What does that mean?
All non-devotional yogas or spiritual paths, they have a difficulty, because you can see some of their teachers, they complain, if you were serious about mukti and liberation, you would already be free, you would already do sadhana and you would already be free. You would not be attracted because you just started practicing and so much prosperity came and you became totally deviated. So therefore they, if you don't have desire for moksha, you don't practice. However, if you do desire liberation, you cannot get it. It's a material desire. Desire for freedom is material. It's just a negative, same thing, like desire to smoke or hatred towards smoking, you still think about the same thing. So whether you want to enjoy matter or you hate matter, still you think about matter. So moksha kama, desire for freedom, is the same, is as material. I mean, it's noble, it's much higher.
They don't hate material at that point. The compassion is for all you need.
So, therefore,
Yeah.
for us, it's easy. We say whether I am liberated or not, I just serve Krishna.
Mhm.
So for us, liberation is a byproduct. It's a secondary result. Not even the primary, it's a secondary result. We don't care.
Mhm.
And it happens. But for them, they don't have transcendental support, the transcendental positive truths on the other side. So therefore they have to create something that on one side will keep them practicing,
Mhm.
on the other side will remove the desire for liberation. So therefore they have the Mahayana, they say, they take the Bodhisattva vow. I take a vow, I will not take nirvana until the last living entity in the universe also reaches Mahaparinirvana. So they say, I renounce nirvana, no nirvana, I will just serve everybody compassionately. And you can see they take the same Madhyama Bhakta 4 vows for
Yeah.
compassion, neutrality and friendship and so forth. Same thing. So it's their trick, it's their attempt
Mhm.
to overcome the obstacle of attachment to liberation.
But if it
So that's why they emphasize. They don't have bhakti, so they have to replace it with sort of jiva, jiva doya or something.
But if there would be trick, it would be not manifesting. It would be at some point, if I understand your word trick correctly, it's like pretense.
No, it means it's, how to say?
Do they really get it? Because I think they do get the compassion which they show around.
Yeah.
It's not that they're pretending to, showing compassion to
They call it metta, we call it maitri. It's throughout the Bhagavatam also. What I'm saying, it's their only recourse. It's their hope. It's their method. Okay, not trick, method. Use method.
Trick could be like they're pretending and they're
Dishonest.
not.
It's not dishonest.
It's not dishonest, right?
It's their method to deal with the obstacle of attachment to liberation. But for us, we have to emphasize it for Madhyam Bhakta. Madhyam Bhakta must practice friendship.
Mm-hmm.
In 4:11-13, you can see there is a nice verse by Manu. So he says, he speaks to Dhruva, who is killing yakshas.
Mm-hmm.
His brother was killed, so he goes and he decimates them. He does a total destruction. So therefore Manu comes and he says, look, Dhruva, this is Satam Vratam. This is the vow of good people. What is it? It is Titikshaya, Karunaya, Maitriyacha Kila Jantushu, Samatvenacha Saratma Bhagavan Samprasidati. It's being tolerant, being merciful, being friendly to all the living entities, and being equal. And equal means, at least if somebody is demoniac or inimical, you don't hate back.
Yeah.
You cannot be maybe loving to them, but at least neutral.
Neutral.
Right? And then he says this is a vow of a sadhu, a vow of a spiritual practitioner. Prabhupada says saintly person, but in the West, saint must be, canonized by Vatican and have a halo. So it's a different concept. So let's say sadhu, spiritual practitioner. When we say saintly, it means spiritual practitioner. But so he says, Bhagavan Samprasidati. If you do this, the Lord is completely pleased with you.
So that brings to a very important point of how we.
And then you can see Prabhupada says, it is the duty of an advanced devotee in the second stage of devotional perfection to act in accordance with this verse.
Right.
So first, you can see Prabhupada is beginning the preaching, so he first, even Kanishta, but begin. But then you can see it's Canto 4, which is still very early, it's still 60s he's writing. And then he already tries to...
So if I understand you correctly, you say when a not advanced devotee or a neophyte devotee preaches,
yes,
it's not that he has a right to not be having the qualities of this verse, but it is his just stage of advancement, and according to it he is preaching. It's not that he is preaching the truth, it's just he is preaching what he has got up to that point in his hand, and he is preaching according to that mode.
Yes, and he's doing it as his service, as
Yeah,
he
he's
understands.
doing his service, but it's not that he is now putting out the truth on the table. Of course, he's thinking he's putting out the truth
So,
in the sense, but at most of the time it happens through his preaching. Actually, people get a lot offended rather than
can be.
hearing
So-
Krishna. They think, I don't want to hear anymore.
So in Canto 11, we have a quote
Mhm.
from Jiva Goswami that therefore Kanishta is practically useless for preaching purposes.
That's what I would say.
Because-
Where is that quote?
11th, that's the description of Kanishta. Because I can, okay, track, I don't use this, preaching. So because, yeah, look here, Kanishta Dikari is useless for practical preaching work. Why? Because he cannot properly respect other devotees. So therefore, ordinary living entities, he will certainly fail to offer
That's
respect.
exactly what I
If he doesn't respect even devotees, how can he respect non-devotees?
Yeah, no, that's
So,
exactly what I
so,
feel.
so this is why Prabhupada says it's the duty also of the second, and then in the next verse he says it's your duty to come up to the second pattern, become a Madhyam Bhakta.
That I would definitely, I mean, from common sense, I don't know about this, I never read these things, but I thought from the common
No,
sense point
no.
it makes sense.
All right. We were speaking about Nishta, so saying that at Nishta you know how to deal with anarthas, and we said that it means not indulging, but also not trying to conquer them by brute force, by fighting. Not
What was that in 11th canto? I just forgot to write down number.
11:247.
Oh, thank you.
11:247. Somebody has a question. Yeah, but we still have to preach.
It's not
Because somebody has a doubt. Somebody has just.
you see, that's a very tricky question in this call. I know
Yeah.
that.
So you do as you know, but you do this not for your own glory,
Yeah.
but as a seva.
As I
And
said,
if you do this as a seva, it will be humble. You will not do it to dominate others,
done in that mode and attitude,
Yes.
of course, everything is good.
and you will quickly become elevated to Madhyam plateau.
Mhm.
So that's
If that done in that attitude of humbleness, not trying to, which I call bashing, which
yes,
we
yes, yes. And
start bashing, it's not
preaching is gains you so much mercy of the Guru Parampara and
Yeah.
Krishna
Mhm.
that you can advance the quickest. So
Mhm.
that's why don't avoid preaching. Just
No, I mean, I'm not.
I'm not telling you. I'm telling somebody.
I'm not even telling that. I don't even see that the Kanishka or when Kanishka is a word or even neophyte should not preach. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
preaching
yeah.
should be done by anyone. Everyone
But
who
proper, as
properly. That's a very main thing. Right?
Niranjan Swami last year was asked, so what, should we not send them? So he said, you should get them trained
Yes, that's
by,
what I mean.
by those who know how to do it
Those
nicely.
who know this thing, how to do this verse which you are showing first in, which was that previous verse where you show all the qualities of the advanced devotee. What verse does that?
This is 11, 4:11:13.
Oh, 11. Yeah, you said it comes in beginning canto.
4:11:13. All right. So then, by this you get Ruci. Ruci is of two categories. One is dependent on the excellence of kirtan, katha, of the quality of the preacher and so forth. And then at the higher level, it becomes more and more focused on Krishna, not on the process, but more and more. Ruci is still somewhat focused on the process. You like the singing, you like the philosophy, you like the katha, you like. Whereas at the higher levels, it's more and more becoming love for Krishna, the person. So therefore, even if it's inexpert, like for example, a boy is in love with a girl, and then first, so if he's truly in love, then even if somebody speaks about her without a good poetry, but speaks about her, he's attracted. He cannot stop listening to this, right? He will listen. So in the same way here, at the higher stage of Ruci, even the kirtan is not nice. Even the katha is very inept. The lecturer is very, inexpert and bungling. Sorry, it's like not good. But he's speaking about his beloved Krishna. So therefore he's attracted. He will listen. He will experience pleasure in it. So it's said that at this stage, Ruci becomes his guide, like a dancing master. Ruci teaches him to dance in bhakti. So obviously this is a very desirable level, and we are lucky we have devotees in our society who are at this level, experiencing genuine taste. And as we mentioned, one of the marks or symptoms is that they are beyond fatigue, beyond tiredness. So they have so much taste that it carries them through any austerity. They can go on out of taste. All right. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Any last points or questions? Vignesh Prabhu? You must have been. You can go. You have to.
Questions are more if you have.
You discussed till Ruci.
Yes.
Have you got further?
Asakti. So I will mention one big difference between Ruci and Asakti. I've already started that at the higher level of Ruci, you shift your taste more and more to the person of Krishna. So basically you shift your taste more and more to Krishna, person of Krishna. Person of Krishna. In other words, you become more and more, your love unfolds more and more. Right? So here you just like the process, and then at Asakti you are very attracted to Krishna himself. So therefore Madhurya Kadambini gives something quite interesting, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He says that even at Ruci you can be chanting or reading, and you don't notice how your mind drifts from Krishna to matter. You don't notice. Now he was Krishna, and then all of a sudden you find yourself thinking about laundry, cars, something, and there is a yoga exercise. You trace step by step.
Step back.
Yeah.
I have done that many times. It's very helpful actually.
It helps. Yeah.
Because
you become
you
more and
see
more.
how you ended up here.
Yes.
Where did I come here?
It helps. Then you become more and more mindful. More and more.
Exactly. It's a part of it.
So, but in Asakti, you may be thinking about material things, and you don't notice how you end up on Krishna. You start with something like completely unrelated, some complete material topic, and then your mind imperceptibly drifts towards Krishna.
It's not by that you have to force your mind
exactly.
at that time. It's
Spontaneous.
not I should all the time talk and think about
Exactly.
Krishna, but it's
Exactly.
natural, spontaneous direction of your thinking.
So because you are so that this is the level where your mind has become your friend.
Sure.
In the 6th chapter of the Gita, he says, at a certain level, the mind can be your friend. So at this level,
What does that verse? I forgot the number.
6:4, I think.
6:4.
So that the mind is your friend, and he imperceptibly takes you to Krishna. But it's natural if you saturate the mind, fill your mind with Krishna, then the mind is your friend, and even without your noticing, he will take your mind to Krishna. And you will see, you will be walking, and it will pop up in your mind, oh, this is Krishna's eye, or this is like in the temple, the deities, or this is like what I read.
Vibhutis. So
Vibhutis.
all that you start seeing that Vibhutis, which Krishna describes, I think, in 194 Vibhutis in Bhagavad Gita, you will probably start to correlate every Vibhutis.
Yeah. So, and Asakti, you can see this is still the sadhana stage. It's the highest, the last level of your effort, Asakti. And this is the reason why bhava is so rare, is because very few people reach this level by their endeavor. That's why bhava is sudurlabha, is very rare, because we are not so eager. And this eagerness is what is the preceding stage for bhava, the perfection, meaning the already transcendental transformation of the heart, melting of the heart, the ray of mercy.
What should be done then, when doubt comes? on the path, on this process.
So I think
What should be our attitude towards ourselves? I'm
So-
not talking about outside anything.
three kinds of doubts are mentioned by Jiva Goswami, because this verse speaks about doubts. Chidyate sarva samshaya, all the doubts. So he says there are three kinds of doubts. One kind of doubt is the doubt in Krishna. Is Krishna actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Is absolute personal? Is Goloka the highest, or whatever? So he says this will be conquered already at the stage of Bhajana Kriya by hearing. You just hear the Bhagavatam consistently and it becomes clear. It becomes more and more logical, it makes sense, and you see all the questions are answered. Then the next doubt is bhakti as the process. So this also will be removed by your practice. So when you actually practice chanting, hearing, service, all different kinds of service in the temple, then you also you get direct realization, immediate personal realization. So therefore also this doubt will go. But then he says one doubt remains. So also we are not afraid of doubts, even though Krishna scares us.
It comes naturally. Right?
It's a function of intelligence.
Yeah, exactly, it's a function.
But we have to understand that a doubt has to lead. So he gives three functions. One is viparya. We notice a contradiction by intelligence. The next one is samshaya, doubt. But then
what is the first one?
viparya. You will notice something is contradicting.
I mean, you can resolve it with your own intelligence, even if it comes to your mind. That's
So-
what you mean?
So he says the third function is nishchaya, because there are some people who make samshaya into the ultimate philosophy, cynics, never trust anything. So that's meaning that means they don't use intelligence, or they don't use the full capacity of
What was
intelligence.
Nishtaya?
Nishchaya. Nishchaya means certainty, confidence. You have to use your doubt to find the resolution, to find the certain answer, which gives you complete confidence. So you find what's wrong, you find what are why the doubt, and then you find the resolution, you find the answer, and you become confident. So that's the proper use of intelligence. You find something you can try, not be a sick nihilist. There's no truth, right? That's a sick state of intelligence.
I mean, I see the third point, and there was a time I used to have many doubts. I gave up even finding answer, because I gave up even asking all the Maharaj which were visiting. I never got an answer in the sense I
Some
wanted.
questions, as I mentioned, I had one question for 25 years, and I asked big scholars, and they didn't have the answer. But I had already experienced that. I just wait. I keep the question, and then look, it came. So I already had experience that I just wait humbly, and then Krishna will send me the
Like
answer.
implicit trust, you keep that answer is somewhere
Because
there.
I already have experience. I already have experience. I had the question, and then within few hours, within few days, within few months, Krishna answers. Direct answer to the direct question.
Right.
So therefore, if I had some question, then
yes.
then I know he will answer. And it was not like these remaining 25 years and 20 years. It was not like a big fundamental question. It was a detail that I didn't understand. But Jiva Goswami says there is a third kind of doubt which stays up to this point, up to prema. What is this doubt? This doubt is, that's okay, Krishna is God. That's okay, bhakti is the process. But can I achieve Krishna? Am I capable and qualified to actually achieve prema and perfection? Maybe they are nice, but I have so many faults. So he says this verse describes the removal of this final doubt. Why? Drishta evat manishvara. Because Krishna comes and embraces you, or whichever rasa, shakes hands with you, or depending on your rasa.
That was today we were reading, right?
Yes.
Which number is it? 1, 2?
21. So this is where the last. So in other words, this doubt mentioned here, that's a very elevated, humble doubt about one's. But at bhava, it's already ashabandhan. It's indestructible hope. even though still Krishna hides because he wants you to go further, to grow even, mature even more. But your hope is already indestructible. You know that Krishna is, he says, Hinartadika sadake tvaya chedya mule sati. You are always merciful and you always give more than people deserve, and whatever is lacking you supply. Hinarta adhika sadaka. Somebody is useless. Hinarta means useless, but he wants, so you sadaka, you supply adhika, you give more than he deserves, and whatever is lacking, it's like some university. One Prabhupada disciple, he was homeschooling his son, and at 14 or 13, Harvard, they wrote him a letter, sent him to Harvard, and he says, guys, your tuition is $100,000 a year. I cannot afford. So then they said, how much can you afford? He said, well, I can afford $4,000, not $100,000. They say, okay, you give 4,000, we supply 96,000, but send your son. so that's, they supply whatever is missing. So Krishna is like this. You even give, $2, but you want. So he will say, okay, don't worry. You want? Okay, so I will supply whatever is missing, but continue. So that's Krishna's kind nature. And because the devotee is certain, therefore, at bhava, he is incurable optimist.
Which verse was this which you were saying?
Hinatadika sadaka. That's from Padyavali, but Hinatadika. This is Madhya 23:29. Madhya 23:29. This is a quality of Bhava Bhakta. So that's coming. We will discuss maybe in the evening today and tomorrow. Okay, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Thank you very much. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya vacha patitanam pavanebhyo